I'm a young adult male living in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. I joined a fairly popular BDSM website in January and was instantly drawn into the community. For those of you who don't know, BDSM is a variety of erotic practices involving bondage, dominance, submission, and masochism. Think 50 Shades of Grey, if that helps. The community welcomes all kinks and fetishes alike, and everyone I've ever met from that site has been very welcoming and friendly, except one. It all started with me coming across her profile. She was a gorgeous woman. Very fit, with long legs and firm breasts. She was an older woman, but I was into that. I started by browsing her collection of photos. Mostly fairly vanilla images of her sitting at a dining room table, drinking a glass of wine, and smiling at the camera. Real classy. Which only urged me forward. I went ahead and messaged her. I wrote the usual greetings and offered to chat and get to know each other. She replied almost instantly. She greeted me as Sir, given the role I take. We continued to message back and forth for a week or two. She explained to me that she wanted me to be her master, since her last master died in a car accident. This was odd to me, but unfortunate accidents can happen to anyone, right? She continued giving me details of what she wanted me to do to her, and I very much obliged the next couple of days. We kept trying to meet up for a coffee, but unfortunately she had to cancel last minute every time. Eventually, I began getting very eager, as all the kinky discussion had gotten me worked up. So, late one night she messages me, inviting me over to her place. She explained to me that she doesn't work in the morning, so we can be up all night, having our fun. Being so worked up, and not having the necessary blood flowing to my brain to make an educated decision, I agreed and asked for her address. She sent me her address, along with a phone number that she said was her home line, and I got ready to head out. So I got into my car, and I plugged the address into my GPS. This is where I noticed she lived in Hamilton, which is about 45 minutes away from Toronto. It's currently 1 a.m., but this didn't bother me, as I drove to Hamilton quite often, and considering I was spending the night, I could just leave in the morning. Minutes later I find myself passing Hamilton. Okay, so it's a little further than that, no big deal, but then, I reached a stretch of highway void of any streetlights. This is where I start to get concerned, as I only had my own headlights lighting the way. Suddenly my GPS chimed in with a female voice, indicating my exit was coming up on the right, and I feared driving into the darkness off the mild comfort of the highway. The exit took me into a long dark stretch of country road. My warning lights start going off, as I pass silhouettes of farmhouses and forestry. A good distance between each of them. My GPS chimed again, indicating that my destination was coming up on my left, but as I approached the location, it's not even close to what I expected. It was a small church house, with one yellow street light, illuminating the dirt lot in front of it. I pulled into the lot, and took a closer look with my vehicle's headlights, pointed at the building. The windows and door were boarded up, and definitely not recently as the wood seemed weather-worn. My blood began to run cold, as I made sure my doors were locked, and my windows rolled up. The full tank of gas gave me some kind of comfort in this situation. I figured she possibly made an error, while typing out the address, and called the number she gave me. The number you are trying to reach is no longer in service. Okay, at this point, I'm ready to turn and leave, until I noticed my phone alerting me that I have an email. It was a message from her. Hey, I see you're here. It's not the church, my place is the small house behind the church. All I could do is replay all of the horror movies I've seen in my life in my head, and I just couldn't believe I could possibly be living one out in real life. However, a small jolt of curiosity persuaded me forward, even if to just take a look at this house. There was a small path beside the church, and I slowly pulled into it. As I crept my car forward, a small little farmhouse poked itself out of the trees at the top of the hill. At this point I'm certain, I'm not going in there. I've made the decision in my head, that my own survival took precedent over the need for sex. I was about to reverse out of there, until I saw the upstairs balcony door open. A hooded figure stepped out. I couldn't see their face, but I could tell by the posture and shape that It was a man, despite the darkness of his facial features. I could feel that he was looking directly at me. He stood there for about 30 seconds, before he motioned his head in a way I recognized as the universal signal for "look behind you." Just then, I felt the metal handle on the outside of my driver door being tugged at. I quickly turned my head in that direction, to see the woman from the profile photos, hunched over and pressing her face up against the window. My heart leapt out of my chest, as I stared at her horrifying smile. The best way I can describe her expression would be any creepy cartoon image of the Joker you've ever seen. It was undoubtedly her behind that insane grin, only much older. She whispered through the glass, "Open the door, baby." I was frozen in my seat, unsure of how to respond, or even what to do next. So I just sat there, continuing to stare at her, like an idiot. Her face then quickly fell into an angry, malicious expression, as she continued to violently jiggle at the door handle. She then said slowly, "Get out of the car." This knocked me into panic mode, and I pressed my foot to the gas. My car set to reverse. The woman tried holding onto the car handle, only to let go shortly after being dragged off her feet. I flew down the dark road towards the highway, almost triple the speed limit, just in case they had a car themselves and decided to chase me. I called up a friend of mine, who I also met on the same website. She lived in Hamilton and insisted I come over and stay the night. When I got there, she poured me a cold glass of Coke Zero as I explained what happened. She told me that she read in a local paper about an older couple who lured men out to their farm. I stopped her right there, as I didn't want to be more freaked out than I was already.